So I think there's deep-seated hypocrisy. The example you just mentioned, the BDS, the boycott, divest, strike movement or sanction movement, is exclusively focused on Israel. And there's a close cousin of the ESG movement. And as Sean was talking, by the way, it's a funny little side observation to make. It's funny how these come in three-letter acronyms, right?
Always.
CSR, corporate social responsibility, DEI, SRI, sustainable responsible investing, ESG, BDS, CCP. And I think
figured out a trend.
it's all actually part of the same game. Now, I think the China dimension of this is underappreciated and I think worth discussing. So I know you all heard from Mike Pompeo yesterday. He and I actually co-wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal a week or two ago on this issue, on the economic and even geopolitical impact it has in the U.S. So what China has recognized is that this ESG game is actually an asset. It's actually a way to weaken the West while simultaneously relatively strengthening China. Why? Because the very firms that will tell Exxon and Chevron, who I wrote a letter to the board of about a month or two ago, they will tell them to cut oil production effectively through emissions caps, through Scope 3 emissions reduction targets. Yet while they still own firms like PetroChina on the other side of the world, they don't apply those constraints. They don't say a peep. And the reason why is that the CCP, if you apply an ESG constraint to a Chinese company, they will tell you to close the door on your way out. But if you actually apply those same constraints to the United States, they effectively roll out the red carpet. And so in a certain way, it's not just hypocrisy. If it was just hypocrisy, I wouldn't merit a great degree of commentary because there's so many ways in which corporations and organizations are hypocritical. But this is actually a product. And I know it sounds conspiratorial. It's a conspiracy reality because it's hiding in plain sight. If you listen to Xi Jinping, he's basically articulated as much as his strategy. When he is pressed on the Uyghur human rights crisis that you just mentioned by the UN, the first thing he often says is that Black Lives Matter shows that the United States is no better, which would be a laughable idea if it weren't for the fact that our own corporations, through the S prong of ESG, lend implicit credibility to that claim, relentlessly criticizing slavery 250 years ago in the United States if you're Nike, but without actually saying a peep about actual slavery in the present day that you use to produce your sneakers that you sell to black kids in the inner city here for $250. So it's not just the hypocrisy, it is part of the intentional design of the CCP to attack the greatest geopolitical asset of the United States of all. And that is not our nuclear arsenal. It is our moral standing on the global stage. And so, anyway, when the people who are always known to critique injustice are always critiquing the US without saying a peep about China, it actually has the effect of creating that false moral equivalence. Thank you.
Well said.